Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a massive shift happening literally right in front of us. We're unpacking how breakthrough tech and smart policy are finally solving the absolute biggest anxieties around electric vehicle ownership. It's a pretty wild journey, starting from the microscopic chemistry inside your car's battery, all the way up to how that same car might actually save your local power grid. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. For years, the spotlight has been completely on the vehicles themselves. The range, the sleek designs, the insane acceleration. But here's the reality. The most incredible EV in the world is essentially just a very heavy paperweight if you can't charge it reliably. The true bottleneck, and let's be honest, often the most frustrating part of the whole EV experience is the charging infrastructure.
To really understand the stakes here, just consider this stat. A 2022 field study led by UC Berkeley found like 28% of public fast chargers in the Bay Area were just completely broken or inaccessible. 28%! That's a massive reliability hurdle. Unreliable public charging has become a huge headache, and for a lot of potential drivers, it's an absolute deal breaker. But before we look at how we're actually fixing the chargers on the street, we've got to understand the incredible tech happening under the hood.
Section 1. Inside the next-gen battery. Zooming into the chemistry that makes it all possible.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how far we've come. Over the last decade, the cost of lithium-ion batteries has absolutely plummeted, which, is a huge reason why EVs hit the mainstream in the first place. Scaling up manufacturing and dialing in those supply chains drastically dropped the price per kilowatt hour. But here's the thing, lithium-ion is really just our baseline now. To truly revolutionize the grid, we need next-generation tech.
Recent research, highlighted by NATO organizations, points to three major breakthroughs that are pushing us way past our current limits. First up, solid-state batteries. These remove the flammable liquid electrolyte, which makes them way safer and drastically speeds up charging times. Then you have silicon anodes, which offer roughly 10 times the energy storage capacity of traditional graphite. 10 times. And finally, sulfur cathodes. These use superabundant, low-cost materials while still giving us incredibly high specific energy capacity. These aren't just minor tweaks. They directly solve the energy density, cost, and safety barriers of today's EVs.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing that silicon anode actually in action. When the cell charges, positive lithium ions move into the carbon-free microsilicon anode. But instead of just sitting there, the silicon actually reacts to form a lithium-silicon alloy. You can literally see how those particles expand and densify. By safely managing this expansion at the microscopic level, engineers are unlocking a material that packs a massive amount of energy into a super small footprint.
Section 2. Charging outside the box. Solving the no driveway dilemma. Because let's face it, high-density batteries are kind of useless if urban residents living in apartments have literally nowhere to plug them in. And upgrading underground grid infrastructure for curbside charging, that can be a total permitting and construction nightmare. So companies are getting really smart. Take It's Electric. They bypass the complex grid upgrades entirely by tapping into adjacent buildings that already have 40 amps of excess electrical capacity. They even give the property owner a 20% cut of the charging revenue. Another company, VoltPost, retrofits existing street lamp posts. They work with utilities to bump 100-volt posts up to 240 volts. This gives you plug-and-play charging without actually dimming the streetlights when a car plugs in. It's just brilliant utilization of what's already sitting right there on the sidewalk.
But putting these chargers in the ground is really only half the battle, right? Cities actually have to manage them. Take Somerville, Massachusetts, for example. They recently introduced a 25-cent per kilowatt-hour fee for public chargers that used to be totally free. And this isn't just a cash grab, it's a really proactive municipal strategy. By charging a fee, they incentivize space turnover. That way people aren't just squatting at the chargers all day long. It reduces misuse and helps promote the longevity of the whole infrastructure.
Section 3. Mobile charging on demand. When the charger comes to you.
So what happens when you just decouple the charger from the pavement entirely? When we contrast traditional stationary chargers with mobile charging as a service, or MCAAS, the benefits are pretty obvious. Traditional chargers face complex installations, severe grid dependency, and obviously they can't be moved once they're bolted down. Mobile charging, on the other hand, is completely off-grid and rapidly deployable. It totally avoids those grid infrastructure delays, which, by the way, are currently the single biggest bottleneck for commercial fleets trying to transition to electric.
And the market demand for this stuff is absolutely exploding. Pioneer Power recently secured a $10 million award to accelerate the deployment of their eBoost mobile charging hubs. We're talking about independent, clean energy microgrids that can deliver massive 180 to 500 kilowatt off-grid fast charging. For a business or a municipality, this is a real game changer. It means super fast deployment without those massive upfront installation costs or sitting around waiting months for utility upgrades.
Another massive player here is Spark Charge, which basically operates the first mobile EV charging platform. Think of it like food delivery, but for electricity. Users literally just request a charge via an app, and Spark Charge physically brings portable batteries straight to the stranded vehicle or fleet. Operating entirely above ground, they recharge their own portable batteries using solar or the grid, delivering energy to fleets for anywhere between 60 cents and $1.20 per kilowatt hour, depending on the vehicle size. It's incredibly flexible.
But this brings up an absolutely critical, high-stakes question. We have these amazing batteries and innovative charging networks, sure. But what happens to all these chargers when a hurricane hits, the power goes out, and the entire grid goes down?
Section 4. Emergency Resilience and EVs. Preparing the grid for the worst. Let's move to and see how this builds out on a macro level. Just consider the sheer density of publicly available charging ports across California counties. When you have an infrastructure footprint this massive, and literally millions of drivers relying on it every single day, you simply cannot afford for it to fail during a wildfire or an extreme weather event. That is exactly why the state is pioneering laws to protect and regulate this critical network.
To ensure this vast network is actually reliable, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, alongside the California Energy Commission, mandates a strict 97% uptime requirement for publicly funded chargers. That means the hardware and the software must be online and actively dispensing electricity at minimum power levels 97% of the time, and they track these failures rigorously. But, as you can probably guess, standard uptime doesn't always account for active natural disasters.
And that brings us to California Assembly Bill 2543. This bill forces the state's Office of Emergency Services and Energy Safety to identify exactly which fast-charging stations are critical to maintain during an emergency. It would then force the operators of those specific sites to submit emergency management plans detailing exactly how to provide backup power during climate hazards or planned power shutoffs. Interestingly, the bill explicitly recognizes mobile chargers as a viable backup option to keep evacuation routes powered when the stationary grid inevitably fails.
Section 5. The Vehicle-to-Grid Future. Flipping the script, EVs as grid assets.
We are completely flipping the script here, transforming EVs from a potential burden on the grid into its ultimate savior. Vehicle-to-grid, or VTG integration, is a bidirectional technology. According to recent NATO research, this innovation totally redefines EVs. They are no longer just passive consumers of energy, they become active, vital participants. Your EV can receive power from the grid when energy is cheap and abundant. And then, here's the kicker, return excess stored energy back to the grid to help stabilize it during peak demand or emergencies.
So the crucial point is, this isn't just theoretical science fiction, it's happening right now. When Hurricane Beryl struck Texas, the grid was severely compromised. Spark Charge was able to step right in and provide mobile charging support to vehicles in the aftermath. This proved in a highly stressful real-world scenario that independent mobile networks and advanced EV energy storage offer vital resilience when traditional infrastructure completely fails.
Which leaves us with this final thought. As battery chemistry gives us massive energy density, and mobile and bidirectional chargers decouple us from a fragile grid, what if the electric vehicle sitting in your driveway is no longer just a car? What if it's actually a rolling battery, fully charged, and just waiting to save your neighborhood during the next blackout? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how the technology around you is being built to change the world.